You know, when this whole LARPing situation with TechnoLarp started out, I really didn't think that this was going to be, worth making a video over. But alas, Moist Critical has made a second one and was arguing with the guy in a live stream. So it's a pretty big deal then. Now, there is a lot that I want to go over here. I'm going to timestamp this video because some of this info is not going to be useful to people that have been keeping up with the situation, and some of it will be helpful if you have no idea what I'm even talking about with the whole TechnoLarp thing. But of course, before we jump into the video, if you could leave this a thumbs up, perchance a hype, just helps it get out in front of more people. And if you have been enjoying my videos, consider subscribing. Really helps me out, helps the channel out. But regardless if you do any of those things, just thank you for watching. It took me so long to edit this that there is another update to talk about, which will be at the end of the video, but I also wanted to put it closer to the beginning. So if you're at the beginning of the video, here's this part where I'm telling you, hey, here's a final response from TechnoDad about this whole situation. Just pop over to the timestamp towards the end of video to see this. Now, LARPing, live action roleplay, it means something different now. In the big 2026, there has popped up a trend of LARPers LARPing as old school YouTubers. So for instance here, Larpapplier, a very successful channel doing this, 179,000 subscribers, where they're literally just mimicking Markiplier back in like the 2016 days. Now, everyone kind of points to Larpapplier as a really good example, but there are tons of them. There have even been internal dramas started from LARP dubs off of iDubbbz. They made a content LARP on Larpy is Here. And there is LARP Alert Nation making a video talking about Larpy is Here responding to LARP dubs. It has completely become its own little thing. And in that sense, it's unique, it's fun, it's novel. We're kind of talking about one of those instances where it's gone a bit too far. Now, you heard me mention TechnoLarp earlier, and that has to do with Technoblade here. They were a hugely popular Minecraft YouTuber who ended up passing away 4 years ago now. But of course, the reason that we're talking about Technoblade is because a person went ahead and created TechnoLarp. Almost 200,000 subs. Seems to be, by numbers at the very least, the most successful LARPing channel that there is. As you can see, they're kind of doing like some reverse colors for the profile picture here, and they've gotten some pretty huge videos out here. Most recently, Skeppy is in this video, which is one of the friends of Technoblade. Now, to kind of get this squared away, there are a couple of differences with what TechnoLarp is doing versus some of the other LARP tubers. Number one, Technoblade passed away 4 years ago, which is pretty recent in the grand scheme of things, and pretty much every other, LARP person is doing something that either doesn't exist anymore, for instance, like LARP dubs or Drama Alert, that kind of thing. iDubbbz isn't doing content cop anymore. Even in the example of Markiplier, yes, he's still posting videos, but it's not, in the same style. So it's kind of a return to form, and it feels a bit more novel for most of these cases. Larpapplier is going a bit further than that. And there are a few other things which will probably be mentioned along the course of this video, but the main thing is that Technoblade passed away. And Technoblade's dad is seeing this and is talking about it. And a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that TechnoDad is not a huge fan of all of this happening. Here's a Dexerto article talking about it. Technoblade's dad has responded to a YouTuber LARPing as his late son. I just don't know how to react to this. What am I supposed to do? Now, this is kind of the follow-up from the Dexerto article. This is TechnoDad's Reddit post that he made about this. And so he had waited quite some time. He hadn't said anything yet. And then a couple of days ago now, he said, I've been avoiding addressing this for a while now. I just don't know how to react to this. I mean, certainly it's flattering to Techno, but like, what am I supposed to do? I will say that TechnoLarp has reached out to me on a few occasions to get my take on things, and I have been putting that off for a while. I just don't know what to say to him. Lately, I've been feeling very much like I just want to hide in my room and work on my scripts and space visualization software. Some days I don't go outside. It's very peaceful, and I really haven't had enough peace in my life. I feel a little guilty for how I've kind of disappeared from the community, but I know I'll come back at some point. Anyway, my response is inconclusive. I'm still ruminating on the whole thing. Not only that, but some of Technoblade's old friends were also mentioning that it felt weird that TechnoLarp was impersonating their dead friend. Tubbo, Sneagsnag, and others say the LARPing trend feels off and has put TechnoDad in a lose-lose situation. This leads into just a few days ago, Charlie, or Moist Critical, putting out a video talking about the Technoblade LARPing situation. And I think that he puts it really well as to why there is an issue with, this kind of position that TechnoLarp has put TechnoDad into, and I want to play that. And we also need to talk about the monetization of TechnoLarp. And that's because TechnoLarp seemed to have implied and suggested and said that he was going to be donating all the money that he had gotten from the TechnoLarp channel to charity. But he has gone back and forth on that and has not been as transparent as he could be in regard to that fact. But to start things off, I'll just show you guys what I was talking about first, how Charlie was viewing this and how it put TechnoDad in a bad spot.
A totally understandable perspective here. It is a confusing and uncomfortable topic and thing to even be thinking about as a father with a son who's passed away. Like that, and especially in his case where for years now, there's been like a ton of like fucked up things people have been like doing and like sending his way. So like, yeah, it's something that he's very clearly conflicted on because as he says, on one hand, it is like very flattering to his son, like what impact his son made on so many others to such an incredible degree that someone wants to like literally try and be him and entertain through his son's style that he helped innovate and pioneer. But it goes beyond just being inspired by him to try and do content. It is literally trying to wear his skin like a fucking flesh suit, like a flesh Gundam, and be the Technoblade guy by integrating himself with Technoblade's friends like that as the Technoblade LARPer. It is something that feels like it's encroaching on that territory.
Now, I didn't include it in the video, but Charlie had briefly kind of touched on this idea that people were like, well, what's the difference between this and like a Michael Jackson impersonator or an Elvis impersonator? And Charlie didn't really push on it. He's like, if you just have neurons, you should know why this is different. But I do want to engage with that a little because I think it's interesting. Obviously, Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley were much bigger in terms of like a cultural thing as opposed to Technoblade, a YouTuber. I think that's one part of why people generally think that doing that kind of thing is okay. But I do want to push it just a bit further. The only real kind of like analogy I could come up with in my head is just thinking about the fact that Technoblade was a YouTuber. And let's just look at, I don't know, someone doing an impression of Robin Williams. People don't have an issue with you doing an impression of Robin Williams. But what if you were to go on tour as Robin Williams and do movies with some of the old actors that he used to, do movies with? But on top of that, what if someone impersonating Robin Williams was then to go on and do films as Robin Williams, being an actor in these things? That kind of sounds more similar to what Charlie was describing, like wearing a flesh suit of someone and like completely kind of replacing that individual. And the reason I bring that up is because in a sense, that is what like the LARP tubing thing can turn into. TechnoLarper can do the exact job that Technoblade was doing. He can make the videos and post them. And now he's also joining in the friend group. Skeppy did a video with the guy, and that's what got Moist Critical to make that first video. Now, there's even a clip which I'll show you guys from that video where Skeppy calls him Tech.
Oh, don't do that. That would be bad.
I'm doing it. Oh, you're getting Tech. Do you think if I avoided
this Obsidian takes a long time to mock.
Now, the clip that I just showed you guys came from Skeppy's video that he did of the same, playing with TechnoLarp. And I just wanted to take a sec to read some of the comments because they show a different perspective for a lot of people that watched this. So just some of the top ones from when the video came out, people saying, let's be honest, Techno would have found this hilarious and collabed with him. That's a sentiment that's shared a couple of times here. Other people saying this must be at least a little bit damaging to Skeppy's brain, hearing and playing with a personality similar to Techno. It's fun probably, but the grief after this. People pointing out the clip that I showed you guys here. Someone from a few days ago here, this cannot be good for you, dog. Another person brings up, this feels weird to me, I can't deny that, but seeing how he currently uploads without naysay from TechnoDad, yet maybe time will tell, and donate some of his earnings to charity, I also can't deny that this is very wholesome as well. It allows Technoblade to live on in a sense, even if it's someone role-playing as him. Technoblade never dies, of course, but this is simply one of the many ways he lives on. Even though the real deal would absolutely dumpster this guy in a 1v1. And then again, someone saying the fact that he gets away with it because real fans know Techno would have found this funny too. Now, as sort of a rebuttal to that point, we saw this post made on r/Technoblade, which has actually gone over by Moist Critical in his second video about this, where Techno talks about at some point, if they're making money off my brand, that is weird, champ, and then someone else. So, like, just to be clear, you don't want people selling their fan art that they made of you. Techno says correct. People did did some digging to end up finding out that this was these are real Discord messages. Someone was actually able to find the one that had been kind of censored out. This is that follow-up here. Someone saying, yo, Techno, important question. How do you feel about fan artists using your brand and selling stuff like prints, buttons, etc.? Would you want a percentage of the profit, or do you only want official merch? They're making money off my brand. That is weird, champ. So that was that full, question following up. And right below them there is that other message. Now, over the course of all of this, TechnoDad ends up making another post here on their Reddit. And this is about everyone in the subreddit now just talking all about this TechnoLarp stuff and all the drama around it. And he says, okay, so this TechnoLarp guy hit the scene, right? We all started talking about him. Fair enough. Seems on topic. But then it went too far. So we started getting people talking about how much we're talking about TechnoLarp. Some people say we should stop talking about him. Some say we should continue talking about him. But I say that's gone too far. This talking about how much talking about him we're doing has got to stop. It's time to stop talking about how much we're talking about TechnoLarp. And he makes it very clear this is tongue-in-cheek. He is joking here, I think, trying to just decompress a bit about it. He even does a little bit where he argues with himself in the comments. And so now this all culminates with what just came out a few hours ago here, where Moist Critical makes a second video about this. And this is because during one of Moist Critical's live streams, TechnoLarp jumped into the live chat and started trying to defend himself to Charlie. And so now I want to show you guys some of the back and forth that Charlie had with TechnoLarp in his live stream.
I know you didn't mean to cause what you did. You may not even know the full context of what is happening. Down to talk about it whenever. A lot of people are scared right now. What? What do you... I have no idea what you're referring to there, man. The LARP tubers? I don't understand. Holy vague post. It came from TechnoLarp, so I'm assuming it's about me talking about how I don't find that to be in good taste. I've been doxxed and my family has been threatened. Some other LARP tubers are also under attack. Well, that's awful. I'm sorry to hear that. You were reasonable, but missed some context. It painted me bad. I know you meant well.
Also, yeah, general, just get this out of the way disclaimer. Doxing's bad. And so, yes, people have apparently doxed TechnoLarp for, the controversial bit of this. They're not a big fan of him doing what he has done. Just because he disagreed doesn't mean that you should put someone's life in danger by doxing them. But continuing on with their little chat.
Is the context that Skeppy reached out to you? Because I didn't miss that. That is there. I just didn't find that to be an important thing to mention, because it's not who reached out to who, it's the fact that you still did it in the first place, man. You could have said no. Or if you wanted to collab with him, just do it as yourself, not as a beloved deceased figure that happened to be his friend. There's not context I missed, man. It's just my opinion that I find it to be weird, especially since you reached out to TechnoDad, got no response numerous times, and still proceeded to do it. I started this not thinking it would go big. I only reached out to TechnoDad one time. He was pressured by the community. In his statement, he said you reached out a couple times, yeah? Was that not correct? But regardless, still, man, you didn't get a response and still did it. That didn't seem whether or not he cared about it or how he felt about it. And that's all I was saying. I find it weird.
So initially, as you heard there, he's saying that people in the LARPing community are scared, and he kind of talks about being doxxed and stuff, which isn't good. Charlie's not disagreeing with that, but he's like, if you're here to try to convince me of these things, it's my opinion it was in poor taste. I don't think that I'm missing context, but TechnoLarp is saying that there is missing context. He proceeds to mention this missing context over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, I've reached out to TechnoLarp or have made attempts to. From what I understand, he knows that I'm interested in interviewing him, but at this point, I have not received any comment back or know if he is even willing to do so, but just so you guys know, that may be a future video. And over the course of them kind of going back and forth, you come to find out that, the way that he has gone about monetizing the channel or planning for it, things like that, have been very vague, and Charlie starts to point some of that out.
So many people like myself were under the impression that all of this was done with no financial gain on his own end or anything like that, just all money going to charity through this. And that was something that was used as a defense of the entire thing, about how he's doing this from an ethical perspective, where he is doing all of this just because he was so inspired and wanted to pay homage and a tribute to Technoblade, and all the money was going to charity. Well, that's a half-truth. The charity money is generated through the streams that he does. So he has a charity donation link at the Tiltify. And then right under that, he has a personal donation link where you can donate to TechnoLarper himself. In his streams, he also has a personal donation link as well, which is weird not to mention. Is that true, TechnoLarp? I haven't seen the streams. Do you have one for charity and one for yourself then? I wrote that a while back when I made a community vote. Should have cleared it out. Haven't made money off ads. Is there 2 donation links in your stream though? Yes, I have a personal one that I barely ever mention that people can optionally donate to. Feel like it's pretty obvious why you would barely mention that, man, considering a big part of the identity is that it was for a positive cause, which is something I highlighted too, about how I thought and your community thought you were donating all of this to charity.
Now, this point kind of ties into something that had gone on a month ago. When they hit 40,000 subs on TechnoLarp, they put out a community post. They'd been thinking financially, they're not in the greatest position. This channel makes no money. I would like it all to go to charity when it does start making money. However, hosting these events that I want to make and getting a $250 flight sim to beat Minecraft, etc., I would like to know from you, the community of Technoblade, if I deserve even a portion of the money made. While I do have to put effort into making this content, which should be worth something, it wouldn't be watched if not for Technoblade's legacy. So then he did like 100% money to charity, none for you, all the way down to 25% money to charity. You should get most of it. I believe he ended up getting the 50-50 one, being the most voted. Now, again, this kind of ties into the putting TechnoDad in a tough situation. A lot of people think ultimately TechnoDad should have a say in that. As a matter of fact, TechnoLarp thinks that as well. He's saying, you know, it's up to TechnoDad. If he wants me to delete the channel tomorrow, I will do that. And so he's kind of put him in this position where he's got 80,000 votes on this, you know, thing, and the majority of them are saying that he should get 50-50, and people are engaging with the content. There are a lot of positive comments about the stuff, but at the same time, someone is, you know, flesh suit walking your son. Hard to work through that. Following up after this, I just want to kind of show TechnoLarp kind of asking essentially if Moist Critical will make a second video to include this additional context. And just to clarify, as far as it goes with this additional context, he's referencing the Reddit post that I've already read to you that TechnoDad has said. So for instance, it's time to stop talking about how much we're talking about TechnoLarp. Here's the other post, which again, I read it earlier and it was TechnoDad originally addressing it. TechnoLarp is suggesting that people are not giving, you know, the full breadth of understanding with this, that TechnoDad isn't against him. He's just not responding to him, which again, I don't really know anyone that doesn't follow the basics of when it comes to consent of, you know, a yes is a yes, a no is a no, and a nothing is a no. But continuing on, here is that clip of him kind of asking Charlie to make a second video.
I'm not going to ask you to make another video with more context, but it would be nice. Some of your fans have taken it too far. Okay, what is a nut? What? Brother, you keep saying missing context. And then the 2 things you listed are 2 things that I don't think add any further context to change anything. Because again, man, the brass tacks, taking out how I feel about it, the very simple fact is TechnoDad did say that it is inconclusive how he feels. He doesn't know how to process it. And you reached out, got no response, and still did it anyway. If nothing else, that feels bad. And you can try and dress it up however you want, but that's an immutable fact.
Now, lastly, Moist Critical closes us out by kind of summarizing a few bits and pieces of it. And I just want to show you guys how Charlie talks about the, you know, personally gaining financially on this thing and how that's kind of an issue when a large part of the community from, you know, Critical's perspective is perceiving TechnoLarp as someone who is just doing this for charity. But when you are also gaining financially from it personally, that changes things.
You also are financially gaining on a personal level too, which I think changes things quite a bit. At least to me it does. Because it's not something that's well known about TechnoLarp. And as you said in the stream, it's not something you talk about often. I think it's something that's pretty important to mention. Now, of course, you're not forcing it on anyone, which is good, and I'm not accusing you of doing something like that either. But when the whole narrative around what you're doing has fallen onto the defense of, yeah, but he's doing it for charity, this kind of thing, it is a different spin there because there is a portion of it that's for charity, but you yourself are also gaining personally. You are impersonating a beloved YouTuber, and you never got permission for it. You just took their silence as consent for you to continue to do this. And even when TechnoDad did make a statement that clearly expressed his feelings on this being very conflicted, you still continued to stream as TechnoLarp.
So again, I mean, one of the bigger issues it really seems to be is just how this is all being monetized, how that's being handled, and how it's a very tough position that TechnoDad has been put in, seemingly by TechnoLarp in this situation altogether. All right, and now an update from editor Quinthio here. So here's the drama frog. From Mr. TechnoDad, this just came out a few hours ago. A message concerning Technoblade. Hey everyone, Mr. TechnoDad here. 4 years after my son Alex, known to so many as Technoblade, passed away from sarcoma, his community remains one of the most meaningful parts of the legacy he left behind. He continues on talking about the community, but then we get to what we're looking at today. I've recently become aware of concerns around a YouTube channel imitating Technoblade's voice, mannerisms, look, name, and persona. When this was first brought to me by one of Alex's YouTube friends, I was under the impression that it might be a one-time tribute. I did not know what to think. It was startling and emotionally complex to be presented with, and when people asked me about it at the time, the only honest answer I had was inconclusive. However, this has continued for several weeks, and it is now clear that an identity is being built as an ongoing public persona. That is a different thing from a tribute. And many others have since reached out for my opinion. The situation is complicated by a simple truth. Despite being TechnoDad, I cannot speak unilaterally on behalf of all of Alex's family, friends, and fans, who no doubt have a variety of reactions. But after careful consideration, I have reached a conclusion I can give from my own perspective as Technoblade's father and as the person Alex entrusted to look after what he left behind. I am asking for this to please stop and for the persona in question to cease. No blessing or permission for this or any similar persona now or in the future has been given. I encourage anyone interested in becoming a content creator to find their own voice. Show us who you are. A sincere presentation of your authentic self will always be better than an imitation of someone else. I am also asking the community not to harass anyone over this. This is not what Alex would have wanted. I do not believe that there is malicious intent. Technoblade never dies. He is in his videos right where he left himself, still making us laugh, still reaching our hearts. Mr. TechnoDad. So the most clear and what I would say is most expected to answer from TechnoDad, he does not want this to be continuing. I'm asking for this to please stop and for the persona in question to cease. And I don't really blame him. I think this kind of just falls in line exactly with what Moist Critical was pointing out. And it's just good to see that TechnoDad is able to, you know, give his full chested answer to all of this and clear the air. And of course, not only that, an hour after that, TechnoLarp made a post on his YouTube. TechnoDad's finale answer to it all in summary was to stop the Technoblade persona. There will be a video out soon showing everyone what will happen to this channel. We all should respect his answer because I sure do and honestly am relieved. And it shows a photo of the old TechnoLarp skin and switching it over to this, so I'm assuming he's just going to be doing a rebrand here. Top comments here saying, thank you for respecting what TechnoDad wants. I can't wait to hear what you decide to do in the future being probably quite soon. It was fun while it lasted. I'm glad to be here at the start. RAP TechnoLarp. Good to see that he is listening to the TechnoDad's wishes. I don't necessarily think people were assuming that TechnoLarp wasn't going to listen to TechnoDad's wishes if he finally made a statement on it. It was just everyone feeling a bit weird about him choosing to take TechnoDad's silence as, you know, a yes and allowing him to do it. So glad to see he's doing it. Curious to hear what you guys think. You're about to hear me say that again, but back to the end of the video here. All in all, I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. I think this situation with TechnoLarp is a lot different than the other LARPing stuff. There's a novelty for the most part for anybody that was kind of doing this trend. And also they have, for the most part, either just been LARPing as people who don't exist on the internet anymore, not to say that they're dead, but just don't really have the presence that they do, or the content itself doesn't have the presence that it did back in that time frame. Technoblade, though, is dead. And his father is actively seeing this because he actively engages with Technoblade's community. And further than that, this TechnoLarp guy is integrated with Skeppy, one of his old friends. He's engaging much further into the community of the person that he is LARPing as more than any of the other LARP tubers have done. Personally, I do think it's really strange to not recognize that a silence in response to, you know, asking for permission, it should be a no. And to essentially force the father of the dead individual that you are LARPing as to be the person to, I guess, you know, close that chapter and put a stop to it is something that I think is easy to see is a tough decision and is something that you probably shouldn't be doing. I think there is a clear example here of he's trying to, put meaning and intent and focus on this idea that he really, truly, deeply cares about TechnoDad's position on this, while at the same time taking part in actions and making decisions that just don't really line up with that. But I'm very curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are on this. But that's all I have for this video today. If you enjoyed it, leave a thumbs up, consider subscribing, perchance a hype, and I'll see you guys later. Adios. Peace. Bye.